afternoon and welcome, or possibly welcome back for some of you, to this sort of special edition of our CLEAR webinar series. I'm Dave Dixon here in the Haddam Extension Center in Haddam, Connecticut, part of the UConn Center for Land Use Education and Research NEMO program. And so this is our second webinar today, highlighting some MS4 software programs that may be of use to Connecticut communities and institutions as they prepare to launch into this new MS4 general permit and its many new and exciting, I guess, requirements. And so for the presentation this afternoon, we have with us Joe Lewis, who is from MS4Front, which is another MS4 software program that he's going to talk to us about. And before I turn it over to Joe, I will just say, for those, my usual bit for you who have been on the webinars before, but basically there's a control panel that should be open on your screen. If you want to sort of make that smaller, hit the orange button, or you can hit it again and it'll make that sort of toolbar bigger. If you have any questions during the webinar, enter them into the question box. Everyone is muted, so anything you say cannot be used against you. But anything you put in the question box, though, we will see and will answer as we need to. So with that, I will turn it over to Joe from MS4Front.
Okay, well, thank you, Dave, for that introduction, and thanks everyone for your interest in our system today. What I'm going to do is show you, the live demonstration of our product, but I want to go over just some introductory and background information first about myself, my company, and the actual product. So my name, Joe Lewis. I am the MS4Front product and sales manager for MS4Front, and I work for a company called Houston Engineering. We are a civil engineering and environmental consulting firm located in Minnesota and North Dakota. I'm sitting in an office in Maple Grove, Minnesota, a suburb of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. In addition to the engineering and environmental staff, we also have a team of in-house web and GIS developers. I think we have 6 or 7 full-time developers that work only on web and GIS development projects. So it's the intersection of those two areas of expertise that lets us offer this MS4Front product. So about 6 years ago, we started with the idea, considering the idea of, hey, is there a need out there for a product like this? So we did some market research, talked to a few of our existing clients in the area, and decided to go for it. So for a year, we were in kind of this development phase, market evaluation phase, and a year later, we had the program largely completed, and we started working with our first users. So since then, 5 years now later, we have users in about 14 states, and we have some pretty strong and steady interest in our application, and things are going well. So some background on the product itself and what we're trying to achieve with this is, really what it comes down to is we're trying to give permittees an efficient way to track electronically their compliance activities and make reporting easier and less chaotic, and just overall management of the plan easier, and put you in a better position if you are audited by the state or EPA. So we've had instances where people come to us after they've been audited and say, okay, we need to do a better job, and they come searching for solutions and find us, and we help them get up to speed and do a better job of their compliance tracking activities. So one other kind of philosophy comment here is, we somewhat goes without saying, but we strive to be responsive to user feedback. So that's in terms of both bug reports, because they do happen, so we want to be timely as we address those with our users. We also have somewhat of a continuous feedback loop, I'll say, when it comes with these conversations with existing and future users about, hey, it would be nice if this application did this, or if we could make this change to make it work a little better. So we definitely take that seriously, those conversations, and are continuously making improvements to the system. And it's something that we can easily do, having our developers in-house. So I can walk down the hall 30 feet and start talking with our developers and programmers about what we can do to make enhancements and meet some of those suggested improvements. And we're really after just our goal of being the leading MS4 permit management solution out there in the field. So a few highlights that we're going to touch on in the demonstration, but before we get to that, I just want to lay some of them out. So we are a very, well, at least we feel it's a very robust and comprehensive solution for stormwater data management. We include both ability to develop your stormwater plan and track its implementation as you meet different milestones as required by your permit. We also have a very flexible and configurable system. We realized pretty early on that for this product to be successful, we were going to have to be able to accommodate lots of different ways of doing things, lots of different options that people are just, they just basically expect it. So we've built that in, and you see me point out several things along the way today that will emphasize how flexible and configurable some of our settings are. And I also have the word scalable in there. So we have users ranging from population of 5,000 all the way up to several hundred thousand, including some phase 1 MS4s. So we have a robust system that can work with very mature and data-intensive cities, but we can also work with the smaller cities. And as they've developed and mature their stormwater program, they can to some degree grow into the full features inside of MS4Front. We also have a built-in mapping component along with some external GIS integration capabilities. So I will show that here as we get into the demo. We also have a mobile app optimized for collection of field data, things like outfall inspections, erosion and sediment control inspections on active construction sites, and things like that. And I will mention that we have experience migrating assist users to MS4Front. It's my understanding, talking with both Dave and the town of South Windsor, that there was a number of communities in Connecticut that purchased this assist database back in 2004 or 5 as the initial permit was released. And that's an application that isn't supported as of 5 or 6 or even 7 years ago. So we've had interest from other MS4s across the country that have left that program and migrated to MS4Front, and now we can help with that transition process. And we currently have a user, excuse me, in Connecticut, and that's the city of Stamford. So 2 or 3 years ago, I worked with them to implement MS4Front, and it's my understanding that they have a similar permit structure for their individual permit that you have for your small MS4 general permit. So we're familiar with that, and primarily they're actually using it for their catch basin cleaning program. So they're documenting which catch basins they're visiting in the field and cleaning out. So I mentioned that we have a very comprehensive and robust set of features inside of MS4Front. I want to make this distinction here that we have a plan development component at the top, and we also have a what I call more the day-to-day activity tracking or plan implementation that we can use to track data. So for example, the stormwater plan development is really defining those control measures and BMPs and different activities you're doing to implement those BMPs. And you can use that for your kind of annual reporting overview of how you're implementing your stormwater plan. But then on the other side of it, you need to store your outfall inventory. You need to map your interconnections. You need to do inspections and collect some water quality monitoring data at your outfall location. So that's the bottom half of this. And really we have a number of pages dedicated to that bottom half. And we're going to look at both today. I think there is some interest in, at least initially, in the stormwater plan development component, as a lot of you are developing your plans before the April 3rd deadline. So we're definitely going to put an emphasis on that front part of it today, but I will mention the more day-to-day activity tracking as well. So with that, I'm going to jump over to the website. So I've set up just a sample account that has some resemblance of your stormwater plan inside of this demo account, which I've set up using the UConn CLEAR template that they have posted on their website, and also the town of South Windsor shared their latest annual report with me, so I've taken some elements of each and kind of populated this sample stormwater management plan. So I'm going to log in. This is a web-based system. You can access it anywhere with an internet connection and a modern web browser. So right now I'm in Google Chrome, so I'm going to log in. And this is our program homepage. We call it our dashboard. And I'm going to give a few minutes just an overview of the dashboard before going into the stormwater plan section. So on the right-hand side, we have a map viewer. So I've loaded in the town boundaries, Connecticut town boundaries. That's the red outlines here. And I've also loaded in some of the web mapping services that are available on the UConn CLEAR MS4 web map. So that's something that, because of our setup, we can do that really, really easily. And I can turn on other things like our water bodies. That's another layer on that online web map from UConn CLEAR. And this is just to show you how our mapping system can support plan development and the day-to-day activities. So I can also turn on stormwater data information for the individual town. So if I choose outfall locations, I don't have a lot of data inside of this account, but I did load in a few outfall locations for demonstration purposes here. So I can zoom in here and look at the base map. I have the street base map here, and I can turn on imagery base map as well. And then I can ID this particular outfall, and from this map page, I can jump to another page to start viewing or editing or entering information about this particular outfall. And I can also enter in an inspection activity from the map. So with the map view, I just want to kind of point this out now, and we'll come back to it a little bit later, but we do have the capability to help manage these point data sets for outfalls inside of our application, in addition to loading in these reference layers that I have that are also available on that UConn CLEAR website, web map. Okay, so now on the left-hand side of the panel of the screen, I have a panel that shows me a couple of tables. So what this is, these are some saved searches with this specific to this account right now. So because today we're talking about the stormwater management plan, I have set up what I've called some dashboard alerts. So these are saved searches or queries of the data inside this account. So I've collapsed these boxes for a little simpler view to start with. So I'm going to expand out this top box and say, here's our stormwater plan control measures. So we have 6 elements or 6 control measures in our plan, and this follows the terminology inside of your general permit. So I can, from this page, click on a row and go to see details about public education outreach or any other control measure. I can also set up a dashboard alert here, and I have that shows me all of my incomplete BMPs that I've entered in my plan. So in this case, I have 30 of them. And you'll recognize these BMPs from that template if you've looked at that from the UConn CLEAR website. So I'm just going to expand everything out here. So we basically have the BMP name, who the staff person responsible is. So for everything in this account, it's me. So I have a lot of work to do. And then we also have a target completion date. So you can use this to help track your implementation of your different elements of your stormwater plan. And the last item I have is my incompleted BMP activities. So when we look at the stormwater plan page in a few minutes, you'll see that we have control measures that are defined. Then we have BMPs underneath those control measures. And then one more layer, we have BMPs activities that are belong to individual BMPs. So there's kind of three layers to this stormwater management plan. And I think now is a good time just to dive into that page. From the dashboard here, I could click on one of these rows in the dashboard alert tables, or alternatively, I can go to the navigation panel, and I'm going to show the navigation panel by hitting this green button. So here I have the ability to now navigate to any page inside MS4Front. So I'm going to go to the second folder here and expand it. So stormwater plan information, and we have a number of different pages underneath this folder. I'm going to go into the control measures, and you see we have now a table that shows us our 6 control measures again. So if I go into, for instance, the illicit discharge detection and elimination control measure, I'm going to click on this and automatically advance to the second tab from the left. Every time we load this page, we're going to be on the leftmost tab, which is our control measure list. So when I click this row, I'm going to advance to the second tab. And now I can view specific information about this control measure. So we have a name field, so you have the flexibility to change the name however you want. For this example, I've just kept it pretty consistent with that, with both the permit language and the template that's out there. So we have a description, measurable goals, and I've also added for this account a number of other boxes. So we have the ability to store a few attributes with this specific control measure for the purpose of reporting. So we have the first question in a year one box. So this would be year one of the permit. So July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. We're required to enter an annual report, give an evaluation or assessment of the effectiveness and implementation of each control measure. So in this case, I've included a was the implementation schedule met as defined in the stormwater management plan that you'll submit here shortly. That will dictate your permit. So I've included this just for example purposes here, and you see I can on this page generate a report of all of this information. This would be for this selected control measure, and it's also going to include the BMPs and BMP activities that have been entered. So before I do that report option, I think I'm going to move through some more data stored with this control measure. So if I want to get into those control measures, I want to select the third tab for BMPs. So this is going to show me my list of BMPs stored underneath this control measure. So again, these match pretty closely to what's in the template. 3.1, develop a written IDE plan, control measure 3.1 or BMP 3.1. If I want to view details about that beyond what I see in this table of staff person responsible, target completion date, and completed yes or no field, I need to click on it and advance to the next screen, the next tab, where I see this particular BMP and the details with it. So at the top here, we're also telling you, which page, which control measure in BMP you're looking at to help you track where you are. So we have a name field, staff person responsible, that can be identified. This is most often somebody that has an account within the MS4Front. So this is actually a drop-down menu. And then we have a description, a spot for measurable goals. Does this implementation require a implementation partnership to complete it? And you can choose from this drop-down list. Right now, I've just entered no, it doesn't require an implementation partnership, or yes, it does. So in this case, I put in a regional stormwater partnership. If those options, for instance, don't meet your different partnership that you may have, this is one of those areas where we can kind of make it configurable to you. And actually, you can modify that drop-down list right from this page by clicking this question mark icon right here. So I'm going to select that, and if I want another option, or say I want to retitle one of these options, I can do that through this window. So I'm going to choose Add New Item and go Test. And next time I want to select from this drop-down menu, it's going to have that option there. And then I can just put in some additional comments for implementation plan and schedule. Then I can specify the target completion date, enter in some more specific comments generically, and then indicate if it's been completed or hasn't, or in this case I've added a third one here that says it's in progress or it's continuing. So the information that you see on this tab in both the control measure and later on in the BMP activity tab, we have a series of fields here. So we've set up this account to have these fields, but this is something that can be manipulated, and I envision a process where we would work with communities in Connecticut to really define what information should be stored and how in here, and that goes along then with the reporting aspect of things. The information you enter in here is going to just be reported through our reporting tools. So past the BMP, I can drill down into the specific BMP activities. So in this example, I've entered in a few scheduled BMP activities. So you see I have a 3.1.1 is to develop a draft IDE plan. And then this next one is to do a interdepartmental review of that draft plan. And then finally, we finalize that written IDE plan. So if I drill down into this, you'll see that I have a few things that I'm storing with this activity. including a description, has it been completed, what is the scheduled start and end date, and then in the end an evaluation of it. And in this case, I've also attached a document. So I can upload anything that I choose to these records. In this case, it's a Word document. So I'm going to just click this link to view it. So you see what I did upload, and this is really, really basic, but it is a Word document that just basically says draft plan. But this is to demonstrate what you can do. And then I've also, you see that I've kind of put a scheduled end date on this. So I've also indicated that it isn't completed. So this helps me later on if I am looking for a list of which activities have I said I'm going to do but I haven't. So this helps you search the data and quickly find those incomplete activities that you've scheduled. Or you can enter in this information too as they're completed. That's another way to do it rather than having them entered in for future tasks. So that leads me to a nice feature here. I have an advanced search tab. So if you want to look at all of the BMPs that have not been completed, I'm going to choose no, and then you see I get a big long list of things here that haven't been completed, and I can use this as I monitor implementation, and as you move through different milestones, you see that this list gets shorter and shorter. So back to reporting for activities and BMPs and control measures, we have a couple different options. We have inside this BMP activity, I can generate a report of just this activity itself, or I can go up a level and look at the BMP, which in this case is the develop a written IDE plan. So if I just click the report button here, it's going to generate for me just a summary of my BMP and then those activities that have been completed. So again, this format of this report can be tailored to meet any specific reporting requirements that you might have. And it's my understanding that there isn't anything specific that's laid out there by the state, and you're able to submit things in a way that you want to. But we're willing to work with a group to maybe develop some consistency, or take the format that's developed by the group and just incorporate it into this system. So in this case, you see that we have at the top, we have BMP details. So that's the same information stored on the BMP info page. Then we come down into the activities. So in this case, we have a number of activities, and we're kind of regurgitating the information that's been entered through those different tabs. So if we go to our plan information, our draft written IDE plan, we would go to, so we're looking at the BMP, then we have the BMP activities below that. So we have 3.1.1, which is develop a plan, and then 3.1.2. It actually looks like we're pulling in an extra activity that's associated with a different BMP, but that's a minor thing. So that's what a report looks like. If we want to look at the control measure level report, so we would go back to this control measure page, and at the bottom, next to the save button, anytime you enter in data into this website, you would have to hit the save button to retain that information before you navigate away from the page. In this case, I'm going to hit the report button though to show you another version of the report. So in this case, we're presenting the control measure data. So that includes the year 1 evaluation and year 2 evaluation data that I've entered. So it's likely that when you're using this system, we would query out just your corresponding year that you're reporting on and not show you years 1 through 5 in the same report, although that is a possibility as well. So that's just an instance of things that we will work with you to kind of hammer out exactly what that report is going to contain. One more option for the report. If we go back to the control measure tab, so we have a report tab here, and it's going to just in one shot give you all of the control measures, all their BMPs, and all their BMP activities that have been entered. And we have a few other buttons here that I'll just mention. Probably the nicest thing here is you can export out the data, and this is not necessarily a report format, but it's an easy way to extract the data that you've entered to an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to hit this button just to show you what that looks like. It's pretty straightforward and simple, but it's easy to extract information from MS4Front, and that's one of those things where, hey, we want you to have access to the data for any number of reasons, but one of them is to be able to do your reporting easier. So maybe you want to do some other types of reporting, make a different kind of summary table. So I'm going to drag over this Excel spreadsheet that was just generated, and you see, just a bunch of cells that have the data that's been entered. So here's our public education and outreach row, our description, goals, and then about year one evaluation. Then we have separate tabs for the BMPs and then the activities. So we have a number of BMPs for public education and outreach, and you see what we can, basically get anything that we want out of MS4Front that we've entered into it. And that includes files that have been uploaded. You can do another version of the export to include attachments. I just saw a question that came in, will there be a template for annual reporting? So I think, from what I've heard before from Dave, maybe you want to chime in, but I think that's in progress.
Yeah, yep, there will be an annual report template we're developing, so that could be integrated into your system.
Correct, yep. So I guess that's kind of the full rundown of the plan module. I've kind of went through it pretty quickly just to leave some more time for questions and also look at the other parts of the system. But now's probably a good time just to pause for a minute and ask if there's any other questions about the plan module. And so I'll look at the question window here as I move on, but otherwise I'll just kind of keep going.
One question I have, Joe, is, and I may have missed it, but so within any of the activities, is there like a reminder function or anything like that for, to send reminders to certain staff if, say, something is coming up, it's going to be due in a month or something like that, to remind them to do something?
Sure. So tied to those dashboard alerts that I showed from the dashboard, within inside of the setup of those dashboard alerts, you have the ability to check a box and say, send email reminders. So you can specify who gets those reminders. So maybe it's that staff person responsible for a BMP or BMP activity. So they're going to get that email pinged to them saying, hey, you're scheduled for this and this is the due date. And you can have those go out a certain time amount in front of the deadline. So maybe it's a month ahead of the deadline, that email can go out.
Okay.
So the answer is yes.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so I want to, okay, another question just came in. How is the plan certified by a qualified professional engineer? I guess my response to that would be that there would be a signature page that would potentially be developed outside of MS4Front that you would attach in an overall report, and this would be a lot of the content. What's generated from MS4Front would be a lot of the content. So that signature page would go on in front of this in some fashion.
Yeah, so I assume that they would print out their plan from MS4Front and then share that with the engineer to certify and sign that signature page.
Yeah, yep. Okay, so I want to just jump over to the control measure page now, well, a different control measure page. We have a section called control measures that is for that day-to-day implementation and tracking. So to stick with the illicit discharge detection and elimination theme today, I'm going to go to the outfall inventory page, outfall inventory and screening page. So I'm going to click on this table, or this page, excuse me, underneath this folder, and that's going to load another table. So on this table, I see the list of outfalls that have been added to this account, and I just threw some in here for demonstration purposes. But if I wanted to select one, I could view information about it, select it from the table, or I can go to a map tab here and turn those points on again and zoom around. So I can also turn on those other layers that we loaded in for reference. You already see the township boundaries, or the town boundaries, and we also see the water bodies if I turn them on here. I can also switch the aerial imagery again. So I'm going to go back to the table and just choose the top one. And you see here we have location description, drainage area, inspection details, last inspection on this table. And we can change what's displayed in this table. I'm going to select this record, and I'll point out that this is another place where we're very configurable. The information that you see on this tab can be modified underneath the administrative settings of this account. And again, we have a number of these question mark icons where we can change what our drop-down options are. So in this case, we have a name, latitude, longitude. Those are mapping coordinates, of course. And then we have a location description, receiving water body, and so on. We can also upload attachments at this point of that outfall. So maybe it's either a photo or maybe it's a as-built plan sheet or something, whatever you want to do there. And then I can also change the map position. I can do that by going to the map tab and saying, hey, let's edit the point. It's in the wrong spot. I was out in the field and I know that it is. So I can move it around and just save those new coordinates on the map. You can also bring in existing outfall inventories through these buttons on the leftmost tab. So you can use a template to structure the data and use the import data button, and that's going to automatically populate. And that's one of those instances where we've worked with existing assist users to migrate their data into MS4Front, or it can be just a ArcGIS geodatabase that you're storing things in now too. That can be brought over in the same fashion.
Joe, can I ask you a quick question? In seeing the ease with which you move the location of that outfall, is there a way to control who has that ability? And within that, if there is ability to sort of control who has access to doing things, can you like lock down certain parts of the outfall information and other parts not? Like the location would be something you only want certain people to be able to move, I would think, possibly.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We do have some permissions for who can see which pages. Most of those permissions are well, either you can see a page or you can't, or you only have read-only access to it. We don't necessarily have a special permission level right now that says, hey, you can't address the coordinates, but that's a pretty straightforward thing for us to accommodate as well. And you probably will have coordinate values stored somewhere else if it's in a ArcGIS system or somewhere else that you can kind of keep the exact location external to MS4Front if that's a concern for you, and then you know that you're not going to modify those inside of MS4Front if you already have accurate positions mapped out. So I think there's a couple of different ways around that, and to protect the location values.
Right. The other question I have is then once you do change that location, and assuming you're really did want to do it, can you then export this to a desktop GIS system or something like that to be able to update the location there?
Right. Yes, you can. So that would be done through that import-export feature that we have.
Okay.
It's not a completely automated process. You would have to do the export-import feature kind of manually, so to speak, and bring that back out to a GIS system. But usually with this kinds of data, there isn't a need to do it like daily or even weekly. It's maybe more of a quarterly or annually thing, where if you're making updates in MS4Front and you want to extract that and use it in your citywide GIS system, it usually works for people to do it that way.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So a question did come in about inspections and the field inspection. And that's a good segue here to our next set of tabs. We have more tabs that showed up after we selected a specific outfall. So now if I migrate through these tabs, move my way to the right, I can look at inspection data. So these are inspections that have already been entered inside of this account. So I can add a new inspection. So let's just walk through that process and make sure that I show you the mobile application that goes along with this, because you can do the same thing in the field with a mobile app, and that was the second part of the last question. So I'm going to hit Add New Inspection in this lower right-hand corner, and I'm going to choose my date and time. I'm going to skip over this now for the sake of time, but the option that I really want to emphasize here is when you make a new inspection record, you have the ability each time to choose basically your purpose of the inspection if you choose to. So what I mean by that is you can have different checklist forms to collect different information depending on the purpose of the inspection. So say you just have one, you're always collecting the same information on your outfall inspections, that's fine. But this has the ability to specify different kinds of inspections. So let's say some of them is dry weather screening, or maybe one where you're not going to collect monitoring data. So you can have a shortened form. In this case, I have two just sample forms loaded in to this account. I'm going to choose the second one. So each time you make an inspection record, you're prompted with this selection. So this is actually a pretty lengthy checklist, and things are broken up into different groups or sections. So you see this is a very long one, but I'm going to collapse these boxes and show you maybe the top section here. So we can enter in the different values as we would go through this. You get the point here. These fields can be different types. They can be numeric or text, as you see here. They can also be the drop-down fields. In this case, we have a multi-select field, so we can choose the land uses in the drainage area during this inspection, and that's the way this one is set up. Now we can also have date fields and so on. So I guess I'll just get to the bottom of this and hit save. Now you see we can also upload attachments. So in the field, you're probably going to take an inspection or a photo and attach that to the inspection. But through here, you could upload any other document through the desktop website as well. Let's go down to the bottom. We have another option to schedule follow-up actions. So this would be if you want to come back to the site because you've noticed something, or you just didn't get through it all on the same day, or maybe there's signs of illicit discharge. So you can schedule a follow-up action during the inspection. If I choose yes here, we're going to get some more fields that are presented to us. So we can choose what kind of follow-up type we're doing. So in this case, we have 4 different options set up for us. So let's say we want to do an investigation of the drainage area at a later time. So I can say, well, let's do that by Friday. Then I can choose a time to, and that's going to send us an Outlook calendar invite as well to help us track our activities. And then once we complete this follow-up activity, we can enter in some additional information for a follow-up description and check it off as completed and enter in any additional notes. So you can have a dashboard alert tied to these follow-up actions as well. So you get that list when you log in of your pending follow-up actions in your outfall screening program. So the mobile app, I want to just show you here. We have an iOS and Android mobile application that you can get from those iOS or app stores. So in this case, I'm going to just log in quick, and I've dragged in another screen to make it look more realistic size. But this looks different than our regular site. But if I wanted to say do the same thing with the record and inspection on an outfall, I would click my outfall button, and then I would choose from my list of BMPs, or excuse me, outfalls. And a nice thing here is that we're sorting based on distance. So the outfall that I'm closest to, if I have my GPS service turned on my device, it's going to be the one at the top of the list. So I'll select that outfall, and then I can view my outfall info attributes here, my characteristics, and I can scroll down to the bottom of this page, and I can create a new inspection, or I could view an existing one too. But I'll create a new one, and I'll say, okay, which inspection checklist do I want to use today? So I'll choose wet weather. And this is a different account, so we have different options there. And I'll click continue, and we now have our data input screen basically. We've pulled in a few different things automatically. So this is our current weather using our GPS location to identify the nearest weather station. We've also brought in the time and date as well. So we can move through our checklist responses, and in this case, we have a couple water quality parameters to enter from our field measurements. Then we have the same follow-up action capabilities, and now we have photographs. So if you want to take a photograph with this outfall inspection, you would have the ability to instantly take a photo with that device's camera, or choose from a picture you've already taken in the camera roll, and then hit save, and that photo is automatically attached and visible on this inspection tab inside of the regular site. So same kind of thing with maintenance. We have the ability to document maintenance activities on outfalls. And today I'm talking about the outfalls. We have a number of other different uses of MS4Front here, different pages for different uses. such as structural BMPs. I mentioned the catch basin cleaning program earlier. They're all set up very similar to this outfall page. We have the series of tabs. The specific tabs are slightly different, but and the inspection tabs are common in multiple pages, and they're all set up identically.
Joe, this is Dave. One question that I have is one of the things that the permittees have to do under the new permit is set up a citizen reporting program for citizens who suspect illicit discharges, for example, to report that to the town. Do you see any way to integrate that? Have you had any experience with that with other communities you've worked with? Is there any way to integrate that into MS4Front?
So is the question related to just receiving a call, or is it actually an online submittal form?
Well, they have to set up some kind of a system in order to be able to receive. So it could just be a phone, it could just be a phone system they could set up. And I'm wondering if there's almost, some way for people to, report using mobile devices or something like that, and for that information to be fed into MS4Front.
Yeah. So we do have a feature here within MS4Front, and I'm actually going to have to switch out to a different account to see that. So let me do that now.
Sorry, I don't mean to derail you if you were sort of on a pass, but
no, I think it's a good time to kind of cover that because I was finishing there that page. The only thing I didn't cover is really the report option with the outfall screenings, but it's similar to those control measure reporting or the plan reporting, where you generate a Word or Excel document just regurgitating the information that's been entered, and it's been formatted and includes photos that you've taken, inserted into the report and things like that. So, but with the citizen reporting feature, so we actually have a newer module that we're selling kind of as a separate item with this, separate component of MS4Front, because, well, there's an illicit discharge tracking page. Before I go into the citizen call page, let me go to the illicit discharge program. So this is for logging in illicit discharges. So if you receive a call, you can enter that in here about something that might be going on. So if I click on an existing record, we have some information here that's stored, and it includes who responded or who reported this or who discovered it. And then you can coordinate who's going to go out and look at it. You can identify a staff person at the town to go out and look at it if it warrants a field investigation. So that's what this page is dedicated for. So then you can track, beyond just the initial investigation, kind of the steps you're taking to document that you're eliminating that illicit discharge if there is indeed an illicit discharge there. So I think so this is very focused on illicit discharges. We have a more generic citizen call module that, to be honest with you, matches what some assist users were using. This kind of is a landing place for that assist citizen call module, which can be set up to be very generic. It can cover things like your trash collection, or maybe you have some issues with that side of things, or maybe it's other drainage issues that aren't necessarily illicit discharges, or maybe it's potholes that you want to log in any calls received or any reports. Now the other side, there is what they call 311 apps for citizens to report those different issues, and I think there's different systems out there that can do that. So that's I guess a good point that we could potentially integrate with those to have those show up in MS4Front and let the public kind of have that interface to submit those issues. So, hopefully that answered your question in a very roundabout way.
Yeah, no, that was helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so you have went through the plan module, one specific page on the day-to-day implementation of the stormwater plan side of things. I want to just give you a brief overview of the different pages that we have underneath this section. So we have some public education and outreach, ability to document specific actions such as presentations, hosting different events or opportunities for the public to participate, which, to be honest with you, can overlap with the stormwater plan page that we looked at right away. Then we have the illicit discharge program, which we've looked at now. We have a page for construction, post-construction stormwater page. So if you're reviewing site plans and issuing permits that are contingent upon applicants meeting both construction, erosion sediment control ordinances, and also post-construction treatment of the EMPs. You can document those plans, the review process, and then inspections during both active construction and long-term inspections of their operation and maintenance obligation for those permanent treatment measures. And then we have pollution prevention, good housekeeping, non-structural BMPs, structural BMPs, municipal facilities and operations, industrial commercial facilities, pond and wetlands, which is a kind of a subset of structural BMPs that we've developed a separate page for. And then we have employee training. So that is kind of the rundown of all of our different pages. And then private BMPs too, which I won't get into today, but that's kind of another offshoot of structural BMPs. So with that, I guess if there's a question, I see some coming in about costs, so I think that's a great segue. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and just cover the costs here to wrap things up and answer more questions. So we have in our cost system, we have an initial cost that we charge to create your account, do the initial setup and training, and what's included is basically that online training setup includes a first-year subscription. You can have unlimited users, and there's no per project or per BMP charges to go along with your account. It's kind of a fixed rate, so to speak. And then we have an annual subscription cost that covers ongoing technical support, our kind of routine minor and moderate enhancements that we just are making to the program, and then also data storage and web hosting. What it doesn't include is on-site training and data migration. So pretty much everything is included outside of those optional on-site training and data migration services. And we've talked about, with Dave, there's just some opportunities for a group discount. That's something we have done before, and we're very open to that conversation when it comes to it. A few things that we'll consider. As we look at our discount that we would offer is primarily the level of interest that's out there. Numbers mean something, or the economy of scale goes up with a greater number. So that's fairly common sense, and we'll go through that process and conversations when we get there. But the reasons that we would offer those discounts is we would be able to do some combined trainings, and a lot of you would have very similar interests with the configuration and account setup. So there's obviously some cost savings on our part. Some other group benefits outside of a discount on the pricing of the software itself. Maybe there's an opportunity to share some costs for on-site training, and also that data migration from Assist. I think we can automate some things to lower that cost of data migration. So I have one last slide here that I want to just lay out maybe a process for moving forward. So I'm definitely open to having individual conversations with towns following this webinar over the next however long week or two, or maybe some regional groups to coordinate different things and answer more questions about specifics of the program. And then we can move into just coordination of that discount and based on participation level, and we can kind of structure that anyway. We're very flexible in that regard. Then we would move into a step where we get the contract, the agreement signed, and do invoicing. And then we would do the account configuration and move into online training, do data migration if that's what people want. And then over the next couple months, we would work on refining that report formatting to meet your specific requirements, and then we would just transition to some ongoing technical support as needed. And with this size of a group, I would see there being some benefit to having some regularly scheduled webinars to get everybody off the ground quicker. We can talk more about that later. I see a few more questions have come in. Where is this webinar information available?
I can take that one. So with this webinar was recorded, and so we will have it available on our website along with the webinar from earlier today on Permatrack, another MS4 type software program. And so you can find those at NEMO.uconn.edu/MS4. Under the Tools tab on that page, there's a Webinars section, and you can find all of our recorded webinars, including the 2 from today, on there. Now, it will take me a couple days to process this recording, so it may not be up until beginning of next week, but it will be there if you want to review it.
Okay, and then I'll mention on this slide, we can move pretty quickly. We can basically move as quickly as you guys want to, and this whole thing can be done within a matter of weeks, in my opinion, if you're able to do that on your end. Because I understand there is a deadline looming here of, I think it's April 3rd, to submit your draft plan to the state. There was another question on the difference between the full package and the plan only. So let me go up a few slides and look at that slide I had before the demo. So we have the top portion is basically the plan only. So that's where you identify the control measures, the BMPs and BMP activities. And then the plan implementation, the day-to-day plan implementation is storing your outfall inventory, collecting inspections, storing water quality monitoring data, sampling data. That was my examples that I went over today. And to show you inside the application, real briefly, you would get, well, the control measure folder is where that's where the outfall info page is, and you have all the other control measures for pollution prevention, construction, post-construction, employee training, and so on. The stormwater plan only would be just the pages underneath this folder, of which we looked at the control measure page today. We have a few other ones that are dedicated towards storing partnerships, regulatory mechanisms, enforcement response procedures, and standard operating procedures, and separate pages. So that's the difference. And to go back to the pricing, we would have those different price tables that I guess I just displayed.
So the plan only version is basically just to develop your plan. It's not with any annual reporting or recording of your activities. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. So you would have, of course, the reporting features inside this plan page that would generate those Word and Excel documents that I did point out earlier.
Okay. See, there's also a question. I don't know if you want to address this or if this is a question for me. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But there's a question about how does this compare with Permatrack. I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a lot of first-hand knowledge of it, to be honest with you. I hear about it from other people that are evaluating our system. The feedback I get is, that, well, maybe people tell me what I want to hear, but they in some cases say that they prefer our layout and our structure, and of course we have much more functionality than their planning system. So I think we have a comparable planning system, and the other thing I want to point out is I mentioned this a few times is that we're pretty dynamic with how we handle and manage the system. So I can easily make changes to this if there's certain features that we need to address to make people think, or to let it work well for both current and future users. So that's something I can do easy because I sit down the hall from our web developers, and we can have changes made pretty instantaneously sometimes within hours. So I guess I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to make that comparison directly against that other option.
Yeah, and what I would encourage people to do, just from my perspective, just from watching the two, but not really playing with either software program, I think the biggest difference between MS4Front and Permatrack is that MS4Front has a whole mapping component to it that is not in Permatrack, which, depending what community you are, that may be appealing or not, depending on whether the mapping part is appealing to you. And also the whole, mobile field updating of your data that's in MS4Front is not in Permatrack. But I also encourage, and sort of, so which one is, more appealing to a community is going to depend on, whether those are functions that they need or would use or not. And so I encourage people, if you didn't see the earlier webinar on Permatrack, to watch the recording that will be on our website to sort of compare the two.
Sure. And another comment came in there, a question: can you upgrade from the plan only to the full package in the future? And that's a yes. I mean, I should have mentioned that, but that's a very good option, I think, for communities that are facing the immediate need of the plan development that you can transition when you get to it of kind of the full features where you move into more the implementation. Needing to track those day-to-day activities as you meet those implementation deadlines.
Okay. Any other questions from folks? Last 30 seconds. Well, I do want to thank Joe for taking the time to share this information on MS4Front with us. And so if any of you are interested, feel free to follow up with Joe. He's going to have his contact information. It should be up now. So you can contact him directly. Also, for COGS or other folks who are listening who want to sort of see if we can get a bunch of communities who are interested. If you want to let me know that you're interested, and I can kind of keep track of that, and let Joe know, see if we can negotiate some kind of group discount. We can work that as well. But I would, primarily contact Joe, and I'll be contacting with Joe as well. But we can move forward from there. All right.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and I appreciate your interest again.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks again for such a thorough overview of the program. So thanks very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. And the recording will be available if you want to share it with other folks in your group. Thanks very much.